Alright, let's start with this week's programming exercise. Before we start, I would just like to say that take this slowly. Okay, if you don't understand any particular problem or solution, don't worry about it. Okay, at first look, it may appear a bit difficult, but as you solve many problems like 10 problems and 15 problems, you will see that the questions will actually start to become very easy. Okay, so just take it slowly, and I believe you will be able to do it all of those things. Okay, now let's go to our questions. I will be providing the PDF, so don't worry about it. Here, this is our exercise. Okay, and this is the problem statement, and I have added some test cases, one or two always. So this is the test case. Test case means I am providing you the input and the output is also given here. That is the desired output for this question. So let's start with our first exercise. If you want, you can just pause the video to read the questions. I believe that's the best way. Now the question is, an array is given. So this is our array that has been given. It contains the marks received by a group of students. Okay, and this is the marks that has been received by in section 1, for example. Say now find out. We are asked to find out. Question 1: what is the highest mark received by the group of students? Now we can see here 9.5 is the highest mark, but we have to write a code to do it, because this array can be like 1000 elements. This array can contain 1000 elements. Then it will be impossible for us to figure out by our eye. So we can just write a simple code to solve this problem. Okay, so we'll start by copying this input. Just copy this, control copy, and go to our MATLAB. Okay, I am just writing it here in the command window. So you can see in the workspace. Okay, and the variable is also created, marks. It contains 13 numbers. Okay, 13 total, 13 elements. Now the first question, so I will create a new script for it. Okay, so the first question was, what is the maximum element of this array? And we already know to find a maximum element, I have to just write this, the max. It will automatically give me the answer. So this is our correct answer, 9.5. Okay. Okay. Now in the second, if you go to the second question, it says, what is the average mark received by the students? Okay, so if we go here again to find out the average, there is a built-in function again that says the mean. Okay, so I want to find the mean of the marks. Okay, so the mean is 7.84. So that is the average mark that the students actually received in that quiz. Okay, so I believe these two are actually very simple. Okay, now one other thing I would suggest, that when you are learning these new built-in functions, keep a list. Okay, and just keep a list of all the built-in functions that you are actually learning. Just keep a notebook for all the built-in functions that you learn over this course, and that will be really helpful later on, you will see. Okay, so the built-in function that you have learned is max. Okay, then you have learned mean. Okay, so mean. Now let's go to the third question. The third question actually says, how many students received the highest mark? Again, how many students received the highest mark? So if we go here, okay, we can see 9, 6, 7, 6.5, 8, 9.5. One student, 8, then again 9.5. Then I have 8, 8.5. So there are total 2 students who actually received the highest mark. But the question is how can actually we write this using a code? And that's our task. Now if you are using C programming language, now C is a low level programming language, so you can simply use for loop to do this task. So we'll actually start solving this question by writing a for loop. Okay, but when you are actually writing a for loop, we'll use this script. Okay, so let's first save this script as exercise-01. Okay, now I want to write a for loop. Okay, let's actually try to understand how a for loop works. So say, and this is our array. I'm using another array for explaining the for loop if you actually don't understand for loop properly. But if you actually understand for loop, you can just skip this few things. Now what a for loop does is that I will go from this first element. Okay, I will start with this first element and check whether this is the maximum element of this array or not. So this is not. Then I will go to the second element one by one, then go to the third element, fourth element, and fifth element. So I will go by using the index. If you remember from your last class, this was the first index, then this was the second, third, fourth, and fifth. So I will start with the first index and go to the last index, and every time I will just check whether this is the maximum element or not. And if I find a maximum element, I will just increment the count. Okay, okay, let's actually start with our writing our code first. So I will first call a for loop. Okay, this is for, by in MATLAB it is also for. Now I have I, you can use I, J, K, anything, A, B, C, D, or whatever you want. I is called the iterator variable. Okay, or A, B, C, D, whatever you want to use. I normally actually prefer to use I, J, K for the iterator variable. It is called, let me write it down, iterator. Iterator variable means which is actually iterating from the first element to the last element. That is what we call iterator. So for I is equals to, start from the first position. Okay, start from the first position, then I'll use a colon. Understand this colon. Okay, then I will use another one, then I will use another colon, then the last index, that was 5. So let's just write 5. Okay, let me understand, let me explain what does it mean. This one, this is my first element where I want to start, and this one is the last element where I want to finish. I want to start with 1 and I want to finish at first. So this was the first 1 and 5. The middle one is the what we call increment. Okay, what we call increment. Okay, so I want to go over one by one. Okay, so that's why I'm using 1. Okay, and just be careful, we use this colon operator. Okay, now after that, so here I just use a space. Now in MATLAB, the indentation that you have probably used in C programming, in MATLAB there is no hard and fast rule. You may use, you may not use. But actually, I actually prefer to use indentation. That actually make your code look very simpler. Okay, so always use the tab for indentation. So what I'm going to check, I'm going to check A of I. So A of I means at the first step it will take A of 1, this 3. Okay, then the next step it will take 2. So okay, now inside whatever I write here, after writing those things, I'll just end it. Okay, so let me make it clear again. I'll start this for loop. Let me use another one. So for loop is the syntax for MATLAB to write a for loop. Then this is the expression, or you can say this is the limitation. Okay, from which position to which position the for loop will run, and this is my, okay, my code, whatever I want to perform within the for loop, and it has to be ended with a end statement. Okay, and this is actually the syntax for writing a for loop in MATLAB. Now this inside, what is inside, I am going to write a conditional statement. If you remember if else from your C programming, so what I will write here inside, I'll write if. So that is if it has to be a conditional statement. Conditional means if this is true. For example, I would write if A of I is equals to double equal sign means I am actually measuring whether both left hand side and right hand side are equal or not, is equals to 8. 8 is the maximum. So if this is true, I will just increment the count. Count is equals to count plus 1. Okay, count is a variable that I will actually predefine somewhere as 0, because at first my variable was 0, there was no element. Then 0, it will become 1. After I finish this count, I'll just end. Okay, So let me go over again so that you can understand if you don't understand from your previous knowledge. Okay, so first it will take a of I. So at first step, so this one in this line, this whole text should be there. Okay, so at first step it will take 3. It will check whether this is actually 8. It will find it does not satisfy the condition, then it will actually skip this line. It will skip this line and come to this end, then actually repeat, and it will take I is equals to 2. That means a of 2, that is 5. Again you will see this is not equal, then again it will repeat I equals to 3. So a of 3 is 8. So then it is checking, finding that a of 3 that is equals to 8 is equals to 8. So this is true. So it will increment the count by 1. It will become 1. Then again I am going here, then again 7. This is false, so nothing happens. Then again going here, a of 5, it is finding that this is true. So it will again make it 1 plus 1, that is equals to 2. Okay. Now I hope it is clear. If it is not clear, just try again, try to rewatch the video again. I believe it is clear. I think that's the more details. There cannot be any more details. Now one other thing I would like to say, if you actually use Python, you have probably used the syntax like a plus equals to 1. Okay, but that is not actually valid for MATLAB. Okay, you cannot write this way. So for MATLAB we will actually write this way. So let's write our code. Let's go to our MATLAB. Okay, so write our code. Okay. So first I want to define, sorry why it is like this, okay, this count as 0. Okay, that is going to actually save the value, the count variable. Then I'm going to use a semicolon. Again, this semicolon I'm using, it will suppress the output. It will not show the output here. We'll see that later on. First let's write our code. For I is equals to 1 is to 1 is to, I'll go for the last element, that was what, 13. But instead of hard coding it, let's use this function length of marks. What it means that this length is another built-in function. It will actually give me this 13 value, the length of this array. Okay, then if my if this is the condition, okay, then count is equals to count plus 1. Okay, then I am writing int, this int for if, then another int for loop. Okay, so I can actually just write count here, then go to the editor tab and try to run it. Okay, if you run it, you will see it is giving me the value 2, that is the correct value. Okay, so I believe it is clear. Let me show you one thing. If I actually don't use this semicolon and run it again, you will see it is actually showing me every other iteration. Okay, 0, then it becomes 1, then it becomes 2, then this is the final count. Okay, so to suppress this one, showing this one from this command, in this command window, we actually use this, okay, a semicolon. And it is actually good practice to use semicolon, otherwise sometimes your code actually take long time to run if you are actually running a very long code. So I believe that's okay for now. If you don't understand, just rewatch the video. Okay, so I have solved this third question. Now before I actually go to the next one, I would like to say something. Here we are actually using this for loop and this if else condition. Okay, and we have learned another thing here. We have learned a new function that is called length. Okay, remember these things, and these will actually come really handy. Now the last thing I want to say that since MATLAB is a very high level programming language compared to C programming, we normally actually try not to use this for loop. There are some better, more advanced way to do this. We'll see those things in the later section. Okay, for now don't just watch the video. Okay, try to do it by your hand in your MATLAB. Okay, I'm going slowly so that you can actually understand these things properly and try by yourself. But if you don't try by your hand, you will not be able to do these things in real scenario. Okay, thank you for now.